Hey everybody, Frickworks here. Today I'm casting some pearl pin blanks. My attempt today is to cast blanks that look more like abalone. They're going to have a pearl color with a kind of a darker streak running through them to kind of differentiate and give some contrast. Doesn't exactly end up being what happens, but I'm still very happy with how these turned out, and I'm glad you're here to see the process and see me get to a great end point. So I started this off mixing colors that are very similar to the previous video I did on pearl blanks. It's going to be an interference blue, an interference green, and interference red. So I added an interference violet and a macro pearl in Pearl X as well. So these are all Pearl X products that I used on the pearl piece of it, all the interference colors and pearl. For the dark veins, essentially, I used a shimmer violet. I added a little bit of violet dye, which is an alcohol dye, and then I added just a little bit of sky blue to give it a little bit more character. So all those colors combined, it was 6 different cups, so we get 6 different blanks. They're 3 ounces each, and I think it's a very good mix. It's a little light without. I think I probably could have added a little bit more darkness to it, maybe even just a straight black streak to this to get even more contrast. You want to make sure when you're mixing this that you are incorporating all of the Pearl X powder into the resin as best you can. This does work better when the resin is a little warmer, so it's just a little less viscous and gummy. Right now I was doing this in about a 60-degree area, and it was a little gummy, a little hard to work that in. You also want to make sure that you are scraping your stick down on the side, because that will just bind, that powder will just bind up on that stick and not integrate into the resin as well. So once your polyester resin and your powders are all mixed up, you're going to add the catalyst, which is methyl ethyl ketone peroxide for polyester resin. I typically will use 22 to 23 drops of this in each cup, each 3-ounce cup that I use. I like the blanks a little harder. They are a little bit more brittle sometimes, but to me this gives the best final surface once it is completely sanded and polished out. So once you have your catalyst mixed in, all your colors mixed in, you've scraped everything really well, and you've made sure to scrape off your sticks before you throw those out, you can start the pour. I went and started basically with 3 of my pearl colors, and then I laid in the darker streak in the middle and went back then on top with the rest of them. As I complete these, I'm pooling all the resin together in 1 or 2 cups to then add it to the very end. There's no sense, especially in a mixed color one like this, to waste any of the resin. You want to get as much bang for your buck and get as much of it into those molds as possible. So these interference colors didn't meld together as much as the 3-color pearl blank that I previously produced. These stayed separate for the most part. Even through some of the cure, which you'll get to see, you can still see the green, the purple, the red, all still separated within the final blank, which is a very good color swirl instead of just these things being mashed up. And I think the reason for this is that it was still a little cooler in the shop, and it allowed these guys to not meld into a single color. This allowed that black streak to get in there and form kind of a vein, which is what I was going for. I always like to give it a quick mix with another popsicle stick at the end, kind of bring the top pour to the bottom and the bottom to the top. That's where you kind of see a quick down and up motion every time I go through one of the mold sockets. Here we are at the time-lapse cure process. This is where you're going to see that the really cool piece of all these videos. It's lava lamp kind of action where you have this kind of boiling and roiling of the colors back and forth. And this is caused by the heat that's generated. It's an exothermic cure process with the catalyst. The material is cross-linking, so it's kind of starting to form strands that's moving the uncatalyzed and not yet linked material around. So it's both heat and this material linking up that causes this movement. Toward the end, you'll see the surface starts to get a shimmer and kind of a lumpiness to it almost, and that's where you're not going to see this stuff moving around anymore, and it's come to its final gel consistency where it's still very, very warm and still completing the link process, but you're not going to see any more of the movement. Here we are at demold time. As you can see, these all turned out very, very well. I didn't have any soft or uncatalyzed pieces. There was no stickiness to any of these blanks, as I sometimes get when it doesn't complete the catalyzation process, doesn't have enough heat. These came out of the blanks very well, and I'm extremely happy with my final product here. As I said before, I was going for kind of an abalone. This turned out to be more of a cosmic pearl. Has a really neat galaxy nebula look to it. And what I've decided to do with this is, instead of just showing the final blank here, I'm going to take one of these, cut it like I'm going to go make a pen, and just turn it down so you see what it will look like in its final rounded and polished form. So here I've already cut the blank, I've drilled it and glued in brass tubes. I will complete this as a pen, but right now I'm just going to turn this round and sand it so that I can go to the buffing wheel with it and quickly show you a fast polish process so that I can show you both the completed blank and what this will look like when it's used in a pen project. I would recommend that if you recreate this blank yourself to use in a pen project, that you use pen tubes that are colored. You can get them with enamel, either white or black. I think either one would work for this project, but most likely you're going to be seeing the brass pen tube through this material, especially on the ends when you get it turned down, because it's going to be fairly translucent. You're going to get kind of a brass background to this. Not saying it will necessarily look bad, but you will be able to see that. And if you want a different contrasting background, a white enamel or black enamel tube will do much better for this kind of a pen. So here we are at the buffing wheel. I removed the entire pin mandrel from the lathe and put a lock nut on the end of it so that these stay tight on the mandrel. It's the easiest way to buff on pin tubes because you've got something larger to grab than just that small tube between your fingers. This lets you take that whole stick essentially and go through all the buffing wheels that you need to get this thing polished down. This is not a typical process that I use on my pens. Generally, they turn out off of the lathe, as you've seen in the previous videos, with the micro mesh pads and a little bit of plastic polish. They're wonderful, especially on the full resin pens. My process is to use a buffing wheel when I've got a hybrid blank and I'm using Alumilite and stabilized wood. You just can't get a finish on that as good as you can when you use the buffing wheel. Now I only sanded these down to 400 grit, and you can immediately tell once I've hit those first two wheels that these are polished up very well. As I turn this, you can see that pearlescent shine come through from all of those colors, and this is just going to get better and better as these get more polished and more polished. There's going to be once it's all done and I've got it completed as a pen, it's going to have a mirror finish again from the micro mesh and from the plastic polish. This is just kind of an example to show exactly what that will possibly look like on the final blank, so that you can see, hey, this is what your blank's going to look like, and then this is what the final project's going to be. These blanks turned out wonderfully. I'm so glad I cast them this way. Use these anytime you're looking for a similar product. It's going to be the Cosmic Pearl look. Thank you for watching my video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you think of my videos, this project, in the comments below. Your feedback is always appreciated. Thanks again for watching.